trauma bonding. So I would like to start off by stating, I will say that later. Why are we here with this topic? How did this topic come about?
Again, because even though I don't know who most of these people are, I love the blogs, the celebrity blogs, and I came in last week, right? Was it last week when we were in
it was last week.
It was last week before we went live, and I start telling Michelle about Chrisean and Blueface. Michelle don't even know who neither one of these people is when I'm telling her this story, when I'm telling her.
And I did started to remember who Blueface is. He had that remix song with Carly Berry. He made a song, Thought or something.
Oh, Tatiana.
That was the shit. That was the shit a couple years ago. Yeah. So I want to tell you that, but finish what you say, but I'm going to tell you what I heard about him during when Tatiana had dropped. But go ahead.
So I said to Michelle, I was like, oh my God. So they went to go meet Chrisean's family, and he beat up everybody in the family. And Michelle's like, what? I'm like, well, a couple weeks ago, she beat up his mom and his sister. So now, his family is mad at him because he took her side, and now her family is mad at her because she took his side. So now basically, neither one of them are speaking to their family, and now they're basically like stuck together, even though like he just had like a baby like a couple weeks ago by some girl that he already got a kid with. So I don't know.
So I had since college, I didn't know like the story, and even when she was telling me, it kind of just like went in one ear and one out. But I seen someone had posted a tweet that, what's her name? Chrisean had posted about how she was raised.
Right.
How her father abused her mother, family. Her and her family.
Right.
And it automatically was like, not a trigger for me, but it kind of like, when I say this to people all the time, and a certain person in my life, I've said this to them repeatedly, you have to watch how and what you do in front of your daughters and your sons, because you are programming them to believe certain things are acceptable in a relationship.
Right.
That this is how
Yep.
things are supposed to be. It's okay for us to fight. It's okay that when an argument gets heated, the first thing we gonna do
is break some shit up in here
and beat on each other.
Right.
So that was the first thing, and we had already kind of had picked that our topic was we was going to touch on trauma bonding, and I'm like, this is like all of this just like to me had tied into it. So I do want to say, when we decided to talk about trauma bonding, my perception and my idea of what trauma bonding was completely wrong. I didn't realize that it was wrong until I actually started doing
some research.
Now, mind you, we are not counselors. We are not here to give you like
advice,
word on word advice. This is all opinion based. Mm-hmm. We do have a source that we use, a counselor, where Khalida will give that information shortly, and we also post it in our stories. Her Instagram. So if you want to check that out, she's a certified counselor. Like, she has all.
She can give you advice.
She can give you the legit.
Anything you hear us say is hearsay.
Yeah, we've got it from our source, or we're speaking from experience and what we've been through. So we don't want anyone to think like how they say like, listen, check with your doctor first.
Right.
And then don't take my word for it, but we're going to come here and we're going to discuss it and read comments. We'll go through the comments in a little bit. So what cameraman got to turn down whatever he listening to. So whatever my perception was. So myth. This is the myth about trauma bonding. And this is what I was under the assumption that trauma bonding was. And this is something that, what's her name?
Letitia Wiggins.
This is something that, shout out to Letitia Wiggins. Like I said, you can check out her Instagram. It's in our story. Letitia Wiggins, she posted myths and facts about trauma bonding. Trauma bonds happen when two people share a common trauma. I thought that was the be-all of trauma bonding. Like, I thought that was it. And I thought that because, as many of you may know, our day one sippers who have been following us, I was in a 3-year abusive relationship. And I remember the first night that I met my abuser, we shared so much about each other. And I thought our bond was because of the fact that we both had parents that we felt didn't really want us or had abandoned us. So I thought that's what had connected us and what had kept me tied to him. But it was actually, now that I'm doing more research, and I've completely forgiven him, like, or honestly, I went through a whole process of reading and learning and just getting to know myself and soul contracts. So that's an issue that I've dealt with. But I thought that was the bond. But now what I'm realizing, the bond started when I was dealing with a self-esteem issue. I was dealing with an issue where I lost everything, and this person came in and rescued me,
quote unquote,
rescued me, made it, I felt,
right,
you know, like it was like a rescue type of situation. And right after that, the abuse started. And so I'm going through this transition where I'm going from this girl that has everything, that looks a certain way,
right,
has everything, and is actually in the process of losing everything. And with that, because I was so young, my self-worth was equated to what I had.
Right.
So when I lost everything, my self-esteem
plummeted right along with it.
And then I get into this situation where I have someone, anytime I say something wrong, they're choking me out.
Right.
So for 3 years, I lived as though I couldn't leave this person. It wasn't love. I would say it was love. I would say he the only one
that ever loved me.
He
the only one who was there for me when everybody else left me.
Right. So what's the fact of what trauma bonding is?
Trauma bonds happen when an unhealthy attachment develops for an abuser. And I feel like a lot of times, like, we're put in positions where if we're not sure of who we are as a person and, you know, our own value, it's easy for us to accept these small breadcrumbs that are given to us under the guise of love.
Right.
And I'm not talking about, like, it's not even really financial shit either. Like, people think it's always about financials. But that does play into it as well with trauma bonds, because it's a lot of financial abuse, it's a lot of emotional abuse, a lot of physical abuse, verbal abuse. Like, the scars that are left behind are not the physical scars, it's the mental scars that are left behind.
And mental abuse
is way worse.
Way worse. I went to a class to talk about abuse, and there were women, and there was one man in our group. These were women who were abused, and there was one man in our group, and he wasn't physically abused, he was verbally abused. And one of the counselors that was there was like, not to downplay what we had been through, but verbal abuse it becomes a mental thing, and it's harder.
It becomes your internal voice.
Right. That's how you see yourself.
Well, that's the voice that you hear in your head when you're trying to make a decision.
Right. One of my things with how I would always, even after the relationship or the situation was over, one of my things would always be like, yeah, he hit me. But he would always big me up. Like, he would always, tell me how beautiful I was. Like, it was never, it was never verbal abuse. But I would try to downplay the fact that
he beat my ass though.
like he leave the house for a week, sis.
Right.
Because your face was all. He beat you in your face with a size 10, 12 Tim, and you literally couldn't leave the house. So fuck what he was saying to you.
It wasn't matching.
What he was doing.
It was not correlating.
And let me say one thing too. He also, and I don't know, and maybe I need to go to counseling for even saying this, but he also was dealing with a lot of his own trauma.
That's Stockholm syndrome, when you want to relate to your
abuser. He grew up in an environment where he watched his father beat women.
I feel like you can learn two things from your parents. You either learn how to be like them, or you learn how to not be like them.
Right.
Like, but at the same time, you gotta remember there are people too, they're growing up. Usually just like you're growing up with them.
Right.
And they have their own traumas, their own things, their own demons that they're battling on their own. You can't really hold them accountable. You just gotta hope that it's no irreconcilable damage done to you that can't be fixed, and you don't pass it on to your own fucking kids.
That's the most important thing, is us breaking
these
generational curses, these cycles and I feel like if Blueface and that girl stay together, that's basically what they're doing. Because if you have the audacity to beat up my mom and my sister, and I have the audacity
like
to beat up your dad, what are we going to be showing our kids? And there has to be some type of abuse going on within that relationship.
They be fighting all the time out in public. That's what I'm saying. Like, so in between her beating his,
allegedly.
No, it's on tape. It's on video.
I still want to say allegedly.
They put it out there.
See what Cardi B done did to that girl.
No, I'm just all I'm saying is that it's literally the footage is out there.
Right.
You can see it. The footage is out there. The mom, the sister, everything went online. It was a whole big thing a couple months ago with them, and it was just like, this is sad. This is really sad that you out here beating up his family, and then turn around, he beat up her family.
Yeah, it is sad.
And in between, they beat up each other.
That's a lot of
fighting.
It's toxic, and it has to be stopped.
And he just had like a baby or something. Just like a.
But when I first met Blueface, I ain't never met Blueface, y'all. The universe is like, what are you trying to tell me? Anyway, when I first heard Blueface's song, and I was like, because Tatiana was my shit, believe it. Bust down, and the remix with Cardi B, you got a couple drinks in you. That song was hitting. But anyway, Charlamagne and them, I think on Breakfast Club they had talked about it, or he came on the Breakfast Club and talked about it. And I actually watched a couple lives that he did, because at one time he had two girlfriends at the same time. And they all lived in the same house together and everything. And he had a bad relationship with his mom and his sisters before he even met this girl. So for those who are watching, and it might be somebody who actually might be in a trauma bonding relationship, and maybe you don't recognize it, because sometimes when you're in it, you can't see it that you're in it.
You're too close to the forest.
You're too close to the forest.
So,
look, what's her name again?
Her name is Letitia Wiggins.
Letitia Wiggins.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all know I be messing up names.
Her at is @Ty SAH Talk.
Yes, and we posted her in our stories, and that's our source tonight for some of the facts that we are giving you. So, are you saying things like this?